Welcome to Black Hat 2025. We're here, still recording live from the CyberRisk TV Studio at Mandalay Bay here in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's only 100-ish degrees outside. It's actually not that hot this year. I'm your host, Matt Alderman. Joining me for this interview segment is Josh Lemos. He's the Chief Information Security Officer at GitLab. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk about, so you guys did a report with executives, C-suite about AI. Obviously, it's a hot topic. And a lot of conversations we're having with folks here at the event is all somehow strung into AI. I'm curious, some of the highlights from the report, because if I'm an executive, let me preface this a little bit. I'm an executive. We're trying to figure out how to leverage artificial intelligence to speed up business adoption, transformation, innovation, et cetera. I don't care what security says. We're going to do it one way or another, right? Do they really understand the risks of AI? What do you find in your report? Because I'm kind of intrigued.
In our report, we found that people are using AI, right? The security teams know people are using AI, and that is going to fall into a couple of different categories of usage. There is we have embraced AI, we've adopted it, and we're going to use it, and we're going to wrap some governance around it. There's this sort of second category where they have pockets of adoption for different use cases and that can be divided by, part of engineering is using it, or the finance team is using it, or IT is using it in some way. And then there's the people that think they're not using AI, and we call those people generally wrong, right? Generally wrong. People are they are incredibly adaptable. Yeah. The benefits that they're getting in terms of their own productivity is going to outweigh any kind of policy or governance. So when I hear those kinds of things come out in the report, the question becomes, how do we start to enable those things safely, and how do we provide AI governance around it?
Because I did a very simple test the other day. At my day job, we produce a dashboard. We do a lot of risk quant. I took a screenshot of that dashboard. I sent it to ChatGPT, and I said, summarize this dashboard for a chief financial officer. It was highly accurate. It's amazing what you can do with these technologies, which means people are going to find a way to use them.
Absolutely.
Right? But did I violate a policy because I went to ChatGPT? Well, you didn't block me at the firewall. Right? So it's really hard to get your arms around this sometimes as an organization. So how do you start the journey of, let's start with AI governance first, from a governance perspective. What do you have to think about when it comes to AI governance? Then I want to get into all right, now what do we do? How do we actually put some security and some guardrails around artificial intelligence usage?
So one of the ways we've thought about AI governance is through the lens of what can we avail that gives us the right level of security assurances, both in the technology and the handling of our data within those tools. Yeah. We back a lot of our Duo products with Anthropic Sonnet models, and those are relationships which we built over time, where we had our security requirements built in terms of data retention, data deletion, and then once we did that, to give our customers visibility, we launched our AI Transparency Center, and that allows customers to see for their own adoption how we're using models, what are backing each of the features, and then they can decide, I'm comfortable sharing my data here, I'm not comfortable, right. And it allows them to make decisions. So I think the first step in AI governance is get your visibility, understand what is your relative risk or attack surface, and do that in partnership with those tools and vendors. And the days of AI I think are long past us.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like security back in the day. It was no. Yeah. But AI is not going to be a no. It's going to be, we're going to do it and figure out what you can. When you think about transparency and the AI governance stuff, where do certifications fall into the mix? I actually did a segment on Business Security Weekly, a company that went through ISO 42001 certification. Mm-hmm. Do you see that as part of that kind of transparency trust center, that going through some level of certification around AI is a good thing? Or
I don't see that why in third-party risk management do people ask for an ISO 27001, right? Like they want to know that you at least thought about these problems.
Right.
And I look at 42001 in like through the same lens, right?
Yeah.
We are going through 42001. We also have our transparency center, but we want our customers to know we've thought about these problems.
Right.
We have controls in place to manage the risk in accordance with this framework. And so as you think about adoption, you can have at least that level of assurance. Now, don't stop there, right? This is your data.
Yeah.
This is your source code in the case of GitLab. And so we want you to think through how you want to use our features and capabilities, but we're there to provide that transparency so you can adopt it and get the benefits of velocity and that transformation you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. So transparency, now I start to build these things. How do I start to secure these, right? I mean, when you start thinking about this, okay, I've decided that I'm going to leverage AI. I'm going to now use it. I'm going to build an agentic. Agentic's the term of the year right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to build this agentic bot to go do these things in my business, but building it and then securing it are kind of two different components here, right? And so we were talking earlier today, this kind of hype around vibe coding, right? But vibe coding is not secure coding per se, right? But I could build a bot, I could build code with it, but then securing it, right? And so the same thing, even if I put these governance guardrails in place, I've got these trusts built in, I still need to do some level of guardrail security validation. So what does that look like in an AI world?
So in terms of software development, it doesn't change the fundamentals very much. Code is going to be code. It's generated by an LLM, it's generated by a staff level developer, or it's generated by an intern. It's all going to have to go through a build pipeline of some sort.
Right.
And so our thesis is that as long as you're building code, it should go through the same low friction security checks that you would run on any of your code. It doesn't matter. Like you could vibe code it, great. Like
right.
We'll make sure that it's secure. It may not like perform the way you want it to. I don't think that that's really our sort of place as security practitioners to decide what the performance attribute should be.
Yeah.
But we should be there to validate how the code is, what the code at least is making it through the pipeline, that is secured to whatever your base level is for any of your tools. A lot of the agentic workflow stuff, the benefits are not necessarily just in the code generation. It's in all the other tasks. When you go to write a service, what's the first thing you do? You create a repository, you write a README, you do all of these things. Those are sort of low value tasks that you have to do. Where you can start to offload those to teams, that's a very low risk security activity.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna, create a repo, put some docs together, and like if you have a good prompt, you might get like hours worth of savings in that. So you can actually get to the thing that you're good at and want to do, which is write the service in the first place.
Right. Yeah, I remember the day where we had document our APIs, right? Yeah. And Swagger Docs. If you can automate those tasks really easily now, hey, there's all the documentation sitting in my repo.
And the second order benefit to that is security teams can then know what those APIs actually do.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't have to be a perfect doc spec to understand. The fact that you have documentation there and you have a sense of what your assets are gets us to that first principle of security, of visibility and observability.
Right. Exactly. We were talking a little earlier about agentic from a task-based perspective, and you said something really interesting. When I build an agent, for me, it does something specific. It's kind of personalized to the individual. Mm-hmm. However, and this is where I see the value of agentic, but still some challenges, is when you broaden its use case, whether it's multitask and stringing them together or multiple users, like a team usage of that. Talk a little bit about where you see some of the capabilities around agentic going.
Yeah. In our early use cases for agentic, you saw a lot of linearity between the developer IDE and the source code repository, and it was expressing value for an individual developer. Whether that was code generation or code refactoring, those identities sort of traversed on a linear plane, north-south, if you will. Now that we have agentic AI, we're starting to go a little bit more east-west. And so as you deploy MCP servers and you have plurality of agents, you can then start to move in directions that are nonlinear in some sense or fashion, right? Pulling in different inputs, which create new access and design patterns that weren't initially thought of. And the next evolution of that is like, how does that express value at a team level? So where we were first, going kind of north-south, and now we're going east-west, now we have maybe a team performs a certain set of actions. They, have certain rituals around their code review, or they have other practices. And now they're going to have agents that exercise some of those rituals for them, right? Or as a team or as a group. Now, whose identity is that team agent? Is it the service owner? Is it the code owner? Is it the VP of the department? There's some decisions that need to be made around how you think about governing those different agents, who's accountable to those outputs, and then who monitors and manages that estate as you have this sort of cohort.
And especially across multiple teams.
Across multiple teams.
Right.
Across
it's easier when you're a smaller startup like I am, and it's one team. But when you're Amazon, it's hundreds of teams, right? And so who owns those and how are they used across different teams could get really interesting, right?
Yeah. I see that as being really the future of where non-human identity comes into play. Sort of how do we think about attribution and then audit trails, right? Because one of the things we want is we want these things to express their velocity benefits. But we also, as security practitioners, want to know what happened and be able to do some root cause analysis when things don't go the way we planned.
Yeah, so let me give you a good example of that, right? So we've been building an agentic AI that logs in and does some very simple things, right? It logs in, it finds settings, it goes in, inventories all the different settings, grabs screenshots, pulls that back so you can analyze your control posture, right? It's a control automation state. The bot does a great job. It does its task, it answers the controls, it's great. Here's the challenge. How do I get CISOs to trust that bot to log into their CRM to actually go perform those tasks? So to get the benefit gains of not doing it manually, you have to build some level of trust. And so therefore you have to know, what's the bot doing? How do I see what it's doing? How do I get an audit trail from it? Because otherwise, you probably don't necessarily trust it, do you?
I think that the question of trust about bots is the one that comes up most often. And there are a couple of things to consider. We still have our IAM security fundamentals to consider. When you're creating an identity for a bot, if it's only doing all the read actions, you don't need the full suite of CRUD operations. You can say, this is a read-only bot. I know that because it's provisioned in your system to only have read access. And then and in your audit logs, you can say these are also attributable in your audit logs to this identity. And this identity happens to be not a human, but something that was instantiated by a human. And I think that those two controls give you the right level of insight and build trust through that transparency.
Yeah, but let me play devil's advocate for 1 second, because I said the same thing. But even with read-only access, I could still exfiltrate a bunch of data from your system through read-only access because I'm grabbing screenshots and I'm pulling that out. How do I know that it only has access to the right parts of the application and not all the other stuff? So in the case of what I'm building for, it's all about automating compliance and configuration settings. But in theory, I also have access to all your clients, all the client contracts. I could screenshot all that too, right? So again, this level of trust, I think, is where we move next.
I would ask you, what if that bot, instead of being a bot, was, say, a early in career employee who had just joined your company? What would your security team do if they saw this new employee all of a sudden accessing all these customer records? Would your insider threat program catch that?
Would it catch it?
We should have those same level of assurances, whether it's human or non-human.
So leveraging your existing other tools in the pipeline to monitor these things, even though they're not humans, they're agentic.
Exactly.
Josh, thank you so much for joining us.
Matt, it's a pleasure.
To learn more, please visit securityweekly.com/GitLabBH. For all your Black Hat 2025 coverage, please visit securityweekly.com/Black Hat. Thanks again, Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay tuned. We're going to do the final wrap up from day one at Black Hat 2025.